Well, welcome. In the previous video, we looked at how a translation affects a graph or an equation, and we looked at the graph translation theorem. But in this video, we're going to be looking at how a translation affects a set of data. So in other words, if we have a set of data and a number is added to it or subtracted from it, how does that change some of our statistical calculations? So to do this, we're going to be doing an activity that will help us see what or how the data will be affected. So let's look now at that activity. You're going to need your TI Inspire calculator or a similar calculator in order to be able to complete this activity. So get that out and use it and follow along as we go through the activity now.
Okay, so it says for this particular activity, it says the following are the scores of a recent chemistry test in Mr. McLean's class that was out of 50 points. And so here we have our test scores. What we're going to do is I want you to use your calculator and create a table and name column A scores. Then enter in these 20 scores into the table. So why don't you go ahead and pause the video and then hit play when you're ready to move on to the next step. Okay, so you should have your table filled in. So the next step is we're going to fill out the table for the mean, the standard deviation, the median, the range, the interquartile range, and the variance. And the table that I'm referring to is this table down here. So if you don't have my notes, you'll want to create a table like this in your own note sheet for you to be able to track and follow along with. But underneath this step, it says to fill out this table down below, what we're going to do is on our calculators, we're going to go to a new table, not the one from step 1. So I'm going to go to Home and create a new table. And all we're going to do now is we're going to go to, in one of the cells, just go to Menu, do Statistics, then do Stat Calculations, and then do One Variable Statistics. And hit Enter. When it says leave the, we're going to leave the numerator or the number of lists, we're going to leave that as 1, so just hit OK. But here where it says X1 list, what we're going to do is we're going to change this to our scores, and then just hit Enter or OK. And now we can fill out the table. And we can use this, now we can find the mean, we can get the standard deviation from here, we can get the median from right here. However, for the range, we have to calculate the range ourselves. The range, we're going to need to take the maximum value minus the minimum value, and that will give us the range of our set of data. To find the interquartile range, we're going to take Q3 minus Q1, so go ahead and do that. And to find the variance, we're going to have to go back up to our standard deviation. And by the way, we're going to use a standard deviation for a sample, so we're going to use this value. And remember, this standard deviation is the square root of the variance. So to find the variance, we're going to square that value. So why don't you guys go ahead and do that, find those calculations, and fill them in to this table, and hit play when you're ready to check your work and move on to the next step. Okay, so these are the numbers that you should have found. Again, the range, the last three, the range, the interquartile range, and the variance, you had to calculate those on your own, but otherwise the rest of them you got from that screen on your calculator. Now it says, Mr. McLean felt like he did a terrible job teaching this chapter. Concerned that he may be shipped back to Scotland, he adjusted each student's score by 5 points. Let's determine how this will affect his statistical measures. So go back to the original table from step 1, and what we're going to, in order to get to that original table, we're going to have to hit Control to the left until you get there, so it should only be one time. So let's do that. So we're going to hit Control and then the left arrow, so we should be here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go to column B, and we're going to give this the title New Scores. And in B1, we're going to type in an equation. The equation we're going to type in B1 is equals, so the equals is over here, A1 plus 5. So we have to type in A1 plus 5, because we're going to add 5 to each score, and hit Enter. Now I don't want to have to do that every single time, so you may recall that we have there's a way to be able to fill that formula down to the rest of the cells. To do that, go back up to B1 and then go to Menu, Data, and then Fill. And now you're going to arrow down until we get to the 20th cell and hit enter. And so you see that adds 5 to each one of these. So you don't have to do that. And now we're going to repeat the same process that we did for the other set of data. We're going to create a new spreadsheet. And then in this new spreadsheet, do menu, go to statistics, and then stat calculations, and one variable statistics, leave this as 1. But this time, when it says X1 list, you want to change that to new scores. And then just hit enter. And so now again, you can find your mean, your standard deviation. We're going to use the sample one. You can get your median value. You can get your, or you have to find the range by, again, subtracting the maximum minus the minimum. You have to find the IQR by taking the Q3 minus the Q1. And we have to find the variance by taking and squaring our standard deviation. So go ahead and work on that and complete the rest of this table. And then pause the video. So pause the video and hit play when you're ready to check to see if you got the correct answers. Okay, so you should have gotten these answers. So make sure you check those and make sure you got those correct. Now, let's take a minute to make some observations here. If you notice, that value for our mean changed. Our value for our median changed. But the rest of them stayed the same. So by adding 5 to each of those values in our set of numbers, it did not change the standard deviation, the range, interquartile range, or our variance. And the mean and the median, these both changed by adding 5. And obviously that's the same number that we added to each piece in our set. So by adding 5 to each piece in our set, caused the mean to increase by 5 and caused our median to increase by 5. Well, that brings us to our notes. And we have these two theorems. We have the theorem for the center of translated data, which says adding h to each number in a data set adds h, whatever that value is, to each of the mean, median, and mode. Now in this activity I didn't have you find the mode, but if you did, you would have found that that would have also increased by 5. And then the theorem for spreads of translated data. So remember, the range, the variance, the standard deviation, all those are measures of spread of our data. So when we added h to each number in a data set, it does not change the interquartile range. It doesn't change the standard deviation. It doesn't change just our plain old range, and it doesn't change our variance. So adding h to each number in a data set does not change the interquartile range, the standard deviation, the range, and the variance of the data. So that's it. That is our notes. So pretty easy set of notes. That's why I had you do that activity for you guys to be able to discover this on your own. So now you'll be able to do your assignment. And with that, good luck.